It says Hasbro cuts 1,100 jobs or 20% of its workforce, prompted by the ongoing malaise in the toy business. It says toy maker Hasbro said on Monday it's cutting about 1,100 jobs or 20% of its workforce as the malaise in the toy business exceeds through another holiday shopping season. Now, mind you, we're literally in the holiday shopping season. If they are letting people go, that means that they're trying to have a better fourth quarter. The problem is that they are trying to have higher fourth quarter projections, but they don't foresee that happening in the near future. So in order to kind of prop it up, and what they're doing, cutting people out during the holiday season. So then, even though they're making more money from toy sales, they're also not paying out as many people during this time. So they get to keep more revenue, which more revenue goes not to the workers, but it goes to the, say it with me, shareholders. Okay. Transformers, robots in disguise. Autobots wage their battle to destroy the evil forces of the Decepticons. Hasbro. Hasbro's been a name in toys for decades. And as somebody who was a child of the 80s and the early 90s, I have had Hasbro toys growing up. Of course, I had Optimus Prime. Way back in the day, I had Thrust and Starscream. And then for some reason, I lost them. And then I came into Optimus Prime, and then I have Megatron. But I didn't just have Megatron, which is the P-38 Special. I had the tank Megatron with the tank missile launcher on the shoulder. That's the Megatron I had. The one that was green and purple that he transformed into. It was beautiful. And then I had the Optimus Prime with the voice that said, "I am Optimus Prime." It was great. It was wonderful. It was just like, and the thing is that my uncles had brought it for me. They, I was living here in Florida, and they had the toys sent down to me. Jeez Louise, sweet memories. But as we know, there was an article that just came out recently about Hasbro, and they are letting people go. And so my question is, before we get into the article, my question is, with all the adults that are now my age, that are millennials, and with all of us now basically propping up the toy market, how in the world is Hasbro doing this, right? Because there's a lot of us that are now buying toys as millennial adults. Let's take a look at this, because it just confuses me. So I want to share this really quick. So let's take a look down memory lane, and then let's talk.
I don't want to grow up on a Toys R Us kid. They got a million toys and Toys R Us that I can play with.
Everybody knows the song. It's that classic 80s commercial for Toys R Us. And it turns out a kid can always be a kid.
It's true. There's a growing trend that finds more and more adults buying toys for themselves. The group being called Kidults, and it's proving to be a very big business.
And our kid at heart, NBC News Now anchor Joe Fryer is here with more. This is a thing, huh?
Yeah, good morning. I don't want to grow up either. New data is showing that people aged 12 and older, those are kidults, 12 and older, they now make up at least a quarter of toy consumers. And the industry's cashing in with new products marketed specifically toward millennials, even Gen Xers.
Toys of Christmas past are now revisiting many in their adulthood. From adult Happy Meals,
here are the fries, and then a toy.
Totally Hair Barbie, to Barbie, who's starring in a new movie coming out next summer. Nostalgia is a driving force for a growing consumer group called the kidults. CNBC reports that data from market research company NPD Group show adults who are young at heart spend about $9 billion annually.
Having adult money and being able to shop toys.
Jenny New got into Legos about 6 years ago when the Disney
First of all, let me say this. If you're an adult and you can afford to buy toys right now in this economy, I think you're doing all right. Number one. But $9 billion? Now, I'm not against adults buying toys. In fact, I am all for it. My thing is, some of y'all can afford toys? Wait, what? Who of you can afford? Look, I would live to be able to get a Legos Star Wars Star Destroyer to put it together, but I can't. Who are you able to? How are y'all able to afford this? Because my ass is broke. Do y'all know how much eggs? Look, I just did a story on RBN on Sunday. They've been overcharging us for chicken. And some of y'all got y'all hands on a Skip It. Some of y'all got your hands on the Crossfire. Some of y'all got hands on that. What? Some of y'all got your hands on a Hungry Hippo. How? Am I that broke? Well, shit, don't answer that question. But I'm just saying, $9 billion? Some of y'all out here secretly got money that I don't even know about. Either that or some of y'all selling off or buying out some of your 401k or whatever y'all do with a 401k, taking it out. Anywho, I loved Legos back in the day, by the way. But anyhow, am I a little envious of this lady? Yes. Do I wish I can buy Legos right now? Absolutely. But even if I could, I still wouldn't have time for it. Between dialysis, doing this channel, RBN, trying to do work on the ground and mutual aid, I ain't got no time for no damn Legos. I wish I did, though. Anywho, let's continue. I'll sulk later.
The fan laid eyes on a special Disney castle set.
They're really good at catering to adults. I think basically they're aiming for the nostalgic thing.
Now, as a new mom, it's how she decompresses.
I find building Legos to be like my alone time, and then also practice my patience.
The sets come in collectible series like the annual Lunar New Year Legos or investment pieces like the Millennium Falcon, each paired with thick manuals best deciphered by grown-ups.
I need that!
Over the past 2+ years, adults really started to gravitate towards toys and games, not just to spend more time with their families, which they were doing at home, but also for themselves to de-stress.
Aaron Muterick is a former software engineer.
Hang on. Some of us millennials are going to therapy. Some of us are. But some of us can't afford therapy, so we have to just go outside and buy a toy. Some of us millennials want to lay on the couch and talk about our problems to a counselor. But because we can't afford it, it's better just to spend $25, $30 on a Lego set and de-stress with that, or spend money on, spending $35 on, a PS4, PS5 game, Horizon Forbidden West. Maybe spend a couple extra dollars on the DLC and play that for a few hours to decompress. And it plays on our nostalgia. Man, they really got us by the neck. Anywho.
Software engineer turned connoisseur of putty. He says grown-ups are stuck on reliving simpler times from their childhood.
I think there is some level of nostalgia. Putty was introduced in the late 1950s to children. We've seen it time and again where adults maybe think it is for children, but then once they touch the putty that their children have, they want one for themselves.
He created a colorful and non-messy putty that can help some people dealing with anxiety.
The first 10 years, I targeted specifically adults that work in offices, people that sit at desks, for stress relief, for fidgets and anxiety.
Over the past year, the Kidult Group represented 60% of the dollar growth in the toy industry, despite accounting for only a quarter in sales. And toy manufacturers like Lego, Hasbro, and Mattel are tapping into nostalgia by creating products tied into movies like Star Wars and Marvel, and classics like Hot Wheels. A whole new market for a group of adults embracing playtime again.
I just feel like I've accomplished something. It's like art.
Oh, Joey loves.
Man. Jeez Louise.
This. We love this concept. Are there categories, like top categories for these kidults?
Yeah, and it's stuff you'd expect and maybe stuff you wouldn't expect. So you have top of the list, you have board games.
Yeah.
Well, of course, we all know we play board games with our kids or as adults with our parents. So that's not surprising. But then you get into like fan or collectible items. And that is when you're
Now, as far as board games, a lot of people have been playing Monopoly now. By the way, did you guys know Monopoly, the game, was actually to share with people how ridiculous capitalism is? The originator of Monopoly actually created it to show how horrible capitalism really is. And the funny part is there's always this narrative that goes around when people talk about playing Monopoly with their families and how it causes families to be pissed off at each other, to not talk to each other for weeks, because of how the game is played and how you get to a point where, like, there's two games I know that cause fights between families and friends. It's Monopoly and Uno. Hell, we can get down on some spades and trash talk on some spades, but Uno, it's over. Like, Uno will ruin relationships. Anyway, so the same thing with Monopoly. And that's the funny part. But then it talks about board games, and then it talks about fans or collectible items. If any of you guys know or watch anything that's within the nerdosphere, right? The sphere of nerds, there's these little things called Funko Pops. And they'll have Star Wars Funko Pops, Marvel Funko Pops, DC Funko Pops, Harry Potter Funko Pops, so on and so forth. So then you also have to get the collector's items. So you go to some of these comic book shops, a lot of the ones that are, especially in the malls and places like that, you find those too. So yeah. So that's what I mean by the collector items. Oh, and by the way, for those of you who are into anime, this could be one stuff like the models, like the mech models, like Gundam and stuff like that, you know. So I should show you guys one of my models. A friend of mine made it for me, but hang on, I'm gonna show y'all real quick because that's so yeah. So let me share with you guys this. So if you guys are familiar with Gundam Wing, so yeah, my friend built this for me. So when they talk about fans or collectibles, this is the type of stuff that they're talking about, right? So this is from Gundam Wing, Mobile Suit Gundam Wing. This is Epion. So yeah. And yeah, he has also a sword too, and also more stuff. But yeah. So, and then it transforms into a dragon. Yeah. I don't bring it out hardly, but it's really cool. So yeah. So just if anybody's curious about collectibles, you know, fan or collectible items, things like this, and then you put it up. You can put it up in a case or something like that, and then you you know, have it displayed. You know, so that's what. So just to share that with you guys. Anyways, let's continue.
You're talking about Star Wars type things, or maybe anything from the superhero movies, or maybe things that just you buy that is a toy from your childhood that reminds you of your childhood. It makes you feel good. And then, of course, you also have puzzles. To me, that's sort of the same category as like Legos, the things that help sort of help you relax, and feel more mindful. So
What would be your go-to?
I love a light bright. That's always been.
I don't know what it is about Hold Up Copy, but she reminds me of Kamala Harris. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Anyways, so a lot of these things that we are nostalgic about is because we wish for a simpler time, because a lot of us especially who are millennials, we feel the floor, you know, falling out from underneath us, especially within the system. So a lot of us, we buy toys so that we can feel like we're back in a simpler, less stressful time. So this is why a lot of us do this. This is why a lot of us millennials are so cool with video games, right? I find myself playing some Mega Man from time to time. You know what I mean? So that's the point. But one of the reasons why I brought this up was because even though there are a lot of us adults right now, kidults, that are purchasing these toys and really propping up a lot of companies like Hasbro, unfortunately for them, they did lose money. So let me share this really quick so you guys can see. This is the Hasbro revenue from 2022. So it's $5.86 billion. It says in 2022, Hasbro generated net revenues amounting to approximately $5.86 billion, marking a decrease of more than $560 million from the previous year. Hasbro is an American toy and games manufacturer headquartered in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. All right. So they did lose some money, right? $560 million. However, here is the, you didn't need to lay off that many people. And why do I say that? It's because ultimately you're doing it primarily for your shareholders and you're not doing it for your workers. And these corporations, they never ever do anything really for their workers. It's always for the shareholders. So let's get into the article here. So this is out of your Orlando Sentinel. It says Hasbro cuts 1,100 jobs, or 20% of its workforce, prompted by the ongoing malaise in the toy business. It says toy maker Hasbro said on Monday it's cutting about 1,100 jobs, or 20% of its workforce, as the malaise in the toy business exceeds through another holiday shopping season. Now, mind you, we're literally in the holiday shopping season. If they are letting people go, that means that they're trying to have a better fourth quarter. The problem is that they are trying to have higher fourth quarter projections, but they don't foresee that happening in the near future. So in order to kind of prop it up, and what they're doing, cutting people out during the holiday season. So then, even though they're making more money from toy sales, they're also not paying out as many people during this time. So they get to keep more revenue, which more revenue goes not to the workers, but it goes to the, say it with me, shareholders. Okay. That's basically what it is. So let's continue. It says nearly a centuries-old Rhode Island company behind Monopoly, Play-Doh, and My Little Pony toys disclosed the layoffs in a memo to employees published in a regulatory filing. The Wall Street Journal first reported the news. The company said that the reductions are on top of 800 job cuts that have been taken so far in 2023 as part of moves announced last year to save up to $300 million annually by 2025. As of year end 2022, the company said it had 6,490 employees. Like many toy companies, Hasbro is struggling with a slowdown in sales after a surge during pandemic lockdowns when parents were splurging on toys to keep their children busy. So that's the problem. It's like all these parents, they got these kids with all this time on their hands. So it's like, well, here's the toy, you know? And so because you had to spend all your time inside, well, guess what? You had to have something to take that time. And, you know, an iPad can only do so much. You know, a tablet can only do so much, right? Watching a streaming service can only do so much. When you're a kid, you gotta touch stuff. You gotta you know, work those motor skills and, you know, play with toys and stuff like that. So that's what parents did, and that was the cheapest thing that they could do. So it was toys. So yeah. Let's continue here. It says, like many toy companies, Hasbro is struggling with a slowdown in sales. Let me see. Last holiday, many toy companies had to slash prices to get rid of merchandise due to weak demand. And the challenges have continued. Toy sales in the US were down 8% from January through August, based on Circana's most recent data. The market headwinds are anticipated to have to be stronger and more persistent than planned. So that was from Chris Cox, Hasbro CEO. While we made some important progress across our organization, the headwinds we saw through the first 9 months of the year have continued into holiday and were likely to persist into 2024. Cox said the toy maker will focus on fewer, bigger brands, gaming, digital, and our rapidly growing direct-to-consumer and licensing businesses. Shares of Hasbro Inc. fell almost 6% in aftermarket trading on Monday. So they are just, it hasn't been a good year, because here's the problem. People like, gosh, I don't even want to say his name because I don't want to get flagged on YouTube, but I'll just use his first name, Chris. Chris Cox. So one of the things that he has a duty to is a fiduciary responsibility to the shareholders. The fiduciary responsibility is not to the workers. It never is, and that's how corporations work. And so, and I spoke about this on Sunday on RBN, but in order for a corporation to be successful, it has to have growth. Making the same last year as you did this year is still considered a failure in business, even though you're doing well financially, and even maybe your workers are doing better financially. If you don't make more year over year, it's still considered a failure. And that increase has to be dealt out to the shareholders. And so if the shareholders aren't making more, the shareholders aren't happy. If the shareholders aren't happy, well, then it's considered a failure. And so because of that, then that's what we see in regards to Hasbro. It's like, okay, well, how do we make more money for our shareholders? Well, we could increase prices, but then that's going to have a negative effect on us. We could buy up more toy companies, but, you know, they already have, you know, a big market already, a big market share. So they can only do so much in that arena. So what's the next thing? Job cuts. So that's what they do. And so in order to keep more revenue into the hands of the shareholders. The crazy part about it is this is the problem with capitalism, is that the shareholders aren't the ones who are building the toys. They're not even the one that are making the toy designs. It's the workers. But ultimately, who gets shafted? It's the workers. And somebody can come and say, well, shareholders, they take a risk because they're putting their money into a company and then they can lose that money, blah, blah, blah. Yes, they put that money into the company. But here's the crazy part about it. Shareholders are taking an even less risk than a worker. How? Because all they do is, let's say I have $1,000 and I put it into shares into Hasbro. And if I lose that $1,000, well, that's $1,000 that I lost, that I had extra outside of what I actually needed. Versus somebody who's a worker, if they get fired, then guess what? They ain't eating and they ain't living. So it's actually worse for workers. So the people who have the most to lose are workers. And as it goes to show, over 1,000 Hasbro workers have just lost. Because growth, baby. That's capitalism. So one of the things that I wanted to also bring out is the shareholders. Well, shareholders and CEOs, they're doing all right. Let's take a look. So here is Hasbro. This is on salary. This is for 2022. And if you can see, it's in blue is equity, light blue is cash compensation, and yellow is other. Here's Chris. I'm sorry. Yeah, let's go to this is yeah. So Chief Financial Officer, the CFO, Deborah Thomas, is getting over $6 million a year in compensation, right? Chairman of the board, former interim chief executive officer, got $270,000. Let me see. Yeah, here's Chris Cox, $9 million. The CEO is getting $9 million a year. But we got to cut those jobs. We got to cut them, right? Former chief operating officer got $6 million. President, chief operating officer, Wizards of the Coast and Digital Gaming, over $6 million. That's Cynthia Williams. Former chief executive officer for E1, Darren Throp, $10 million. So that was ending the fiscal year of last year. They seem to be doing okay. And here's the crazy part. A lot of that money that they're getting is in equity, which means stock options and things like that. Which means they're also shareholders. But there's a major shareholder that people don't really talk about. I just want to share this really quick. Let me see. This is from Hasbro's own website. I want you guys to see. Hasbro, this is their ownership profile. So this is from Hasbro. I want you guys to go. I want to show you guys who's the top owner, top holders. What does that say, everybody? What does that say? You guys know where I'm going with this, right? So the top owner of Hasbro is Vanguard, the company that owns a little piece of everything around the world, pretty much. Vanguard. Oh, wait. Here's this. Take a look here. BlackRock. right there too. So Vanguard owns over 11%, BlackRock owns over 5%, and then State Street right underneath it also owns over 5%. Look, there's Citadel, 2%. So when they fire or lay off people, it's for people like BlackRock. Because that money that they retain from not having those workers, it goes into the hands of companies like BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. That's ultimately where it goes. So ultimately, whenever you have layoffs, it's really just for the ultra rich. It's not because they actually can't afford anything. It's because the people who are owning the means of production that aren't creating any of the value, they're the ones that actually get a majority of the money. And that's how it ultimately ends up. We get screwed, and then they reap the benefits. So that's what's going on with Hasbro.